Something has gone terribly wrong with April this year, and the bigger picture is far more complex than the evening news has time to explain. Right now, Washington, Philadelphia, New York, Boston, all are simultaneously experiencing temperatures that would normally only occur in late July. The National Weather Service, NWS, has issued a warning: historical records are being broken. Just weeks ago, people in these cities were shoveling snow on the sidewalks. Now, they're running their air conditioners at full power. This isn't just one unlucky city suffering from the scorching heat. This is a vast geographic area being dragged into a heatwave at the completely wrong time. And here's the connection that standard forecasting models have missed. The atmosphere doesn't do this without a reason. A massive heat mass deep beneath the Pacific Ocean is moving eastward, and it's pushing our atmosphere beyond all predictable limits. This heatwave isn't a disaster, it's just a harbinger of something bigger. If April was like this, what will August be like? Leave a comment below, because we're still a long way from the end of this story. To understand why this heatwave is so concerning, you need to abandon the notion that it's hot because there's a lot of sun. The reality is far more complex than that. Meteorologists are facing a high-pressure system, a giant heat dome, hanging at an altitude of 5,500 meters above the East Coast. This structure is not simply strong. It ranks in the top 97th to 99th percentile in the entire recorded history of April. That means in all of human history, this is the top 1% to 3% most extreme event ever recorded. The problem isn't the thermometer reading, the problem is the nature of the air mass. At an altitude of 760 meters, where temperatures should normally fluctuate around 5 to 10 degrees Celsius, measuring instruments are currently recording 15 to 21 degrees Celsius. What does this mean? It means that the entire air mass above the East Coast has been completely replaced by a summer air mass. Remember, April is a transitional month. Urban infrastructure is not yet ready. New trees are sprouting, and the ecosystem is in its most vulnerable state. Forcing a system in spring mode to withstand the pressure of summer mode is like forcing a car that has just started in freezing temperatures to immediately go 150 kilometers per hour. The engine will crack. And this is a detail that even the most experienced meteorologists find unsettling. Supercomputers, the world's most sophisticated physics models, predicted this heatwave. Experienced experts reviewed the model, found the results to be somewhat overly cautious, and manually adjusted the predicted temperatures upwards to be safe. But then, the actual temperature hit. It surpassed the computer model. It defied even manual human adjustments. The atmosphere produced more extreme temperatures than any scenario we had prepared for. When the reality of the system consistently surpasses our best predictions, it's no longer a matter of model error. This is a fundamental signal. The foundations of the climate system have shifted, and it's reacting more strongly than basic physics could have predicted. If this were just a localized heatwave on the East Coast, the story might have ended there. But when we broaden our perspective to the entire continent, the picture suddenly becomes much more alarming. When you turn on the evening news, the media presents these events as 5 separate stories. 5 news reports, 5 editors, 5 different maps. As if the atmosphere had decided to create 5 random disasters at once. The 5 events are: a historic heatwave scorching the East Coast, tornadoes tearing through the Midwest, severe flooding submerging the Gulf states. A late-season frost is isolating parts of Canada, and a Category 5 superstorm forming weeks earlier than its usual historical season in the Western Pacific. But listen carefully. The atmosphere doesn't tell separate stories. Each disaster you see here is a sentence in the same paragraph. They are manifestations of a single atmospheric structure operating at what experts call historically unusual levels. This is not a collection of separate disasters. This is a single disaster structure. It is designed to stretch all relief resources in multiple directions at once. One place is too hot, one place is too humid, one place is too dry, and one place is still experiencing unseasonal freezing. All are connected by a physical phenomenon that we are about to dissect now. Imagine the atmosphere as a river flowing around the planet. Normally this river flows fairly smoothly from west to east, but sometimes its bends, known as Rosby waves, begin to amplify dramatically. On the east side, the river curves northward, creating a high-pressure wave that brings summer heat to Boston. Right next to it, in the center, the river flows south, creating a low-pressure trough, drawing in cold air from Canada that collides with moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. This is the reactor that creates the tornadoes and floods you see on the news. The worrying thing isn't the peak temperature. The worrying thing is the stagnation. When Rosby waves are amplified excessively, they get locked in place. This phenomenon is called atmospheric blocking. It causes hot areas to get hotter, rainy areas to keep raining incessantly, accumulating damage hour by hour. This system isn't simply operating, it's trapped in a spiral of cumulative destruction. The question is, why does this atmospheric river bend so violently in April? If you look at official reports from NOAA or other global meteorological agencies, they'll say, the system is neutral, El Niño hasn't arrived yet, on paper we're safe. But the atmosphere doesn't read reports. What we're seeing, extreme amplification of Rosby waves, early appearance of heat domes, is a hallmark of a system preparing to enter a strong El Niño phase. Official indicators like ONI always have a lag because they are averages of the past 3 months. They're a rear-view mirror. Meanwhile, the atmosphere is a real-time reacting entity. It is reacting to a massive heat wave being loaded from the ocean. Even as scientists are still formally debating whether it qualifies as El Niño, the atmosphere has begun a complete planetary reorganization in preparation for what is to come. So, if the atmosphere is reacting sooner than any official indicator, the real question is, what is it reacting to? The answer is not in the sky. It lies in a much darker and colder place, hundreds of meters below the Pacific Ocean. The core truth of every major climate catastrophe is this: the surface of the sky is just a shell. The true source is always hidden deep beneath the ocean. The Pacific Ocean holds a massive heat reservoir hidden deep beneath the equator. At depths of 100 to 300 meters, where it should be freezing, sensors are recording temperatures up to 5 degrees Celsius higher than average. Remember this, just 3 degrees Celsius anomaly is enough to trigger a strong El Niño. 5 degrees Celsius anomaly below the ocean surface is enough energy to completely reshape the planet's climate pattern. The current atmosphere is not reacting to the heat of the air. It is reacting to the immense heat-attracting force from this energy mass beneath the surface. The most important thing right now isn't how much the surface sea is warming, but the unprecedented amount of heat being stored beneath, waiting to be released. This heat mass isn't stationary. It's being driven by a powerful natural machine, Downwelling Kelvin waves. In recent weeks, unusual westerly winds in the western Pacific have been pounding the surface water, creating massive pressure surges. These surges don't rise to the surface like ocean waves crashing against the shore. They sink and move along the equator like giant underwater currents, carrying trillions of tons of warm water eastward. The function of Kelvin waves is simple but has a wide-ranging impact. They push the thermal layer deeper, burying the cold water at the bottom of the ocean, and paving the way for a massive heat mass to easily rise as it approaches the South American coast. Imagine it as a ship carrying a giant thermal reactor from one side of the Pacific to the other. The most important question right now is, has that process begun to rise to the surface yet? The answer is yes, and it has begun to impact the northwest coast of the United States. Looking at the temperature data off the coast of California and Baja, Mexico right now, we don't see spring sea surface temperatures. We are witnessing a Category 5 ocean heat wave, the most extreme level on the NOAA scale. The ocean is warming to a level that, historically, would be impossible at this time of year. Normally, the California coast is cooled by the phenomenon of cold water, upwelling cold water from the ocean floor being pumped to the surface. But this mechanism has been neutralized. Why? Because Kelvin waves have carried a huge amount of underlying heat from the seabed. When the ocean tries to pump cold water up to cool itself, it ends up pumping up the very layer of water that has been heated by that underlying heat mass. This is the clearest physical confirmation. The heat reservoir beneath the ocean's surface has reached the coast, and it is beginning to transfer energy to the surface. If you still think this is just a seasonal fluctuation, the Pacific Ocean has just sent a second, undeniable signal. This time not with thermometers, but with atmospheric energy. In April 2026, Super Typhoon Sinlaku swept across the western Pacific with Category 5 strength. A Category 5 super typhoon in April, a time when sea surface temperatures shouldn't have been hot enough to nurture such a system. The ocean doesn't care about seasonal schedules. Physics reacts to the amount of actual thermal energy that exists. This is the direct physical link between the Pacific's underlying heat reservoir and the intensity of storms on the surface. The same Kelvin wave system warming the California coast is the thermal foundation that allowed Sinlaku to reach Category 5 months earlier than its usual historical season. Tropical storms are appearing earlier than their season. Ocean heat waves are peaking at Category 5. Continental heat waves are breaking records. The entire atmospheric system, the sea surface, and storm intensity are all operating as if the seasonal calendar has been shifted forward. The system is operating months earlier than its historical baseline. But this is only the charging phase. Everything you've just seen is just the preparation phase. What will happen when the actual phase transition locks in? The media is obsessed with peak temperatures. They love record-breaking numbers in a single day. But in climate science, peak temperatures are rarely what breaks a system. What breaks it is the duration. When atmospheric systems are amplified and trapped in giant Rosby waves, it creates a phenomenon called pattern lock-in. That is, the heat doesn't come and go in 24 hours. It stays. Hot areas continue to scorch the ground. Rainy areas continue to pour down until the infrastructure breaks down. A record-breaking heat wave in a single day is a weather event. But a heat wave lasting 10 consecutive days, that's the structural collapse of an entire season. And here's why this April heat wave is far more dangerous than it looks. April is a transitional month. Neither human nor natural systems are prepared for summer at this time. The power grid hasn't entered its hot season maintenance phase, creating an increased risk of failure when millions of air conditioners are switched on simultaneously. In agriculture, crops are tricked by the heat, blooming too early, becoming unprepared targets if a late cold snap arrives, and the human body hasn't had time to physiologically adapt to extreme temperatures. This isn't like the July heat that systems are designed to withstand. The April heat is an assault on unprepared infrastructure. But all those disruptions are just early warning signals. What really matters is where we stand in the timeline of this system. Look at this map. Phase 1 signal. The April heat wave, the forecast model was overridden. We saw it. Phase 2 charging. Kelvin waves push the underlying heat eastward. It's happening right now. Phase 3, phase locking. The ocean and atmosphere officially synchronize. Trade winds weaken. Coming soon. This means that all the extreme events that the US and the world just experienced were simply the result of the machine entering its warm-up phase. The charging process is complete, but the main release has not yet occurred. If the phase locking process is complete, what will history teach us? Current forecast data points to 3 different scenarios. Scenario 1. Moderate El Niño. Weather patterns change significantly, but remain within the range that current systems can manage. Scenario 2 strong, El Niño. Atmospheric patterns are locked. Prolonged flooding in some areas, prolonged drought in others. Extreme events accumulate over several seasons. But Scenario 3 is what is attracting serious attention in the modelling community. Upper tail risk. According to recent NOAA forecast assessments, there is approximately a 25% chance, or 1 in 4 probability, that Pacific surface temperatures will exceed the anomalous threshold of plus 2.0 degrees Celsius. This is the threshold of a super El Niño. And consider the context. We are building this potential super El Niño on the warmest ocean in all of recorded human history. When additional energy is injected into a system already operating at extreme temperatures, the response is no longer linear. The cascading effects disrupt standard models built on more stable historical foundations. The East Coast heat wave. Forecast models failed to capture its true intensity. An unseasonal Category 5 storm in the Western Pacific. These are not random events converging in April. These are measurable outputs from a planetary system in transition, a system that has accumulated so much thermal energy that it is beginning to exhibit summer-scale responses in the middle of spring. The April heatwave wasn't the peak of the disruption. It was the moment the system revealed its current state sooner than historical patterns predicted. The Pacific subsurface heat reservoir is still moving. The Kelvin wave pulse is still propagating. The phase transition is still ongoing. The question is no longer, is the weather unusual this year? The The data has already answered that question. The question now is this. Every device we have is reading the same signal. The ocean is telling us, months in advance, exactly what it is about to do. The only variable remaining is whether we will use that lead time, or whether we will wait until the system itself makes the decision for us.